You've opened Google Maps before. Everyone has. Maybe to check the traffic, maybe to peek at an old neighborhood, maybe just out of curiosity to see the frozen moments the world left behind. There's something strangely comforting about it, being able to travel anywhere with a single click, to see snapshots of streets you've never walked. The quiet roads, the cars mid-turn, the people caught in motion like ghosts in daylight. But have you ever noticed what happens when you stare too long? When you start to zoom in just a little further than you should? The images aren't always perfect. Blurs, stretches, shadows that don't belong. Most people laugh it off. Glitches, compression, bad lighting. But some swear that what they saw was far more deliberate. A figure standing in a field where no one should be. A face pressed against a window of a home that was supposed to be empty. A car on a deserted road, appearing again and again, until the camera seemed to follow it straight to their own street. It's easy to forget that Google's cameras don't just capture the world, they preserve it. Every mistake, every accident, every unexplainable thing, frozen forever. And if something unnatural slipped into one frame, who's to say it hasn't slipped into yours? So the next time you open Google Maps, take a closer look. That shadow in the corner? That blurred face watching you through a window? Maybe it isn't just a trick of the camera. Maybe it's something that wasn't supposed to be seen, something that noticed you staring back. Because on Google Maps, the world is always watching. Everyone's done it at least once. You open Google Maps, type in your address, and watch as the camera swoops down from space. In seconds, you're standing in front of your own house, or at least a frozen version of it. The sun caught in a permanent angle, the sky an endless still blue, the world paused mid-motion. It's strangely addicting. You scroll down streets you've walked 1,000 times, revisiting the corner store where you used to buy snacks, the playground where you scraped your knee as a kid, or the front steps of your old school, caught forever in a single photograph. The longer you wander, the more surreal it feels. People are there, but not really. Strangers mid-step, faces blurred, frozen in awkward poses like statues. Cars paused mid-turn, their drivers invisible, like toys abandoned on a shelf. It feels almost normal, until it doesn't. Because the thing about these images is they're supposed to be just that. Snapshots. Brief, harmless glimpses of the world. Nothing more. But sometimes when you zoom in too far, when you start exploring places you don't recognize, the pictures begin to feel different. Wrong. A window where someone seems to be standing, though no one should be home. A shadow stretching the wrong direction, bending away from the light. A pair of eyes that look just a little too clear behind the blur, as if they wanted to be seen. Most people scroll past, tell themselves it's a trick of the lens, a glitch, an accident. But a few couldn't shake what they saw. And worse, they couldn't escape the feeling that what they found didn't stay trapped on the screen. Because once you see something that shouldn't exist, it sees you back. These are 3 people who found terrifying things on Google Maps. It started as nothing more than boredom. He wasn't searching for anything strange, just clicking around, letting Google Maps drop him into random streets around the world. It felt like traveling without moving, a way to see places he'd never visit. That night, his screen landed in rural Japan. A long dirt road stretched out under a washed-out sky, the kind of road you'd only walk if you had nowhere else to go. On one side, wild grass bent in the wind. On the other, a flat field that looked endless, empty. At least that's what he thought. He zoomed in, expecting to see the grainy blur of farmland or maybe a stray animal. Instead, he noticed something else. A figure. Tall, thin, standing right in the middle of the field, motionless. At first, he thought it was a scarecrow, the way it seemed to jut up from the dirt, still and lifeless, surrounded by nothing. But the longer he stared, the less it looked like straw or cloth. The posture was wrong, too straight, too human. He leaned closer to the screen. The resolution was low, but he could make out arms hanging at its sides. A head tilted ever so slightly, as if it were watching him through the camera. He told himself it was just a glitch, a warped stitch in the photo, something caught mid-pass. But he couldn't stop clicking forward, moving the little orange figure down the road, frame by frame. And with each click, something changed. The figure wasn't staying in the field. Every new angle, every new turn of the camera, it seemed closer. Not by much, just a few feet. Enough that, if you compared the frames, you'd swear it had moved. First near the center of the field, then nearer the edge, then just past the line where the dirt turned into gravel. By the time he rotated the view again, his chest had tightened. The figure was no longer distant. It was standing at the side of the road, right where the grass ended, right where the road began. He clicked back once, thinking maybe it was a trick of perspective. But there it was again, and again. Closer now. The head tilted lower, like it knew. He felt his hands sweating against the mouse. The room around him was silent except for the faint hum of his computer, and he realized for the first time that night that he was completely alone. And then it vanished. One frame, the figure was there, standing at the edge of the road. The next, gone. Nothing but empty dirt and grass under that frozen, pale sky. His heart skipped. He dragged the camera around in a panic, spinning, clicking up and down the road, checking every angle. Nothing. No one. And then he froze. On one single frame, so close it filled the screen, a face stared back at him. Blurry, distorted, inches from the lens. It wasn't smiling. It wasn't angry. Just staring, wide-eyed. He slammed his laptop shut so hard it rattled the desk. Sat there in the dark, breathing heavy, the glow of the closed screen still etched in his vision. The next morning, he tried to convince himself it was exhaustion, a glitch. Nothing real. Curiosity gnawed at him until he reopened the app. The dirt road was still there, the endless field. But the figure? Gone. Every frame, every angle, just grass and dirt. For days he tried to forget, but that night when he went to close his curtains, he froze. Because his apartment overlooked an empty stretch of land, a field that had never bothered him before. But now, standing in the pale wash of moonlight, he could swear he saw something tall out there. Too tall for a shadow, too still to be a tree. And sometimes, when he looks out just before dawn, the shape is closer. Always closer. Story 2, The Apartment Window. It began as a joke. A college student was video chatting with her best friend late one night, scrolling through Google Maps to kill time. Her friend had never been to her city, so she thought it would be funny to show off her apartment from street view, pointing out the cracked sidewalk, the ugly brick facade, the coffee shop across the street that she swore had the best muffins in the world. She dragged the little orange figure across the map and dropped it right in front of her building. The familiar street loaded, frozen in sunlight. There, she laughed, circling the gray, blocky building with her mouse. Home sweet home. But her friend didn't laugh. Wait, who's that? The student frowned. Who's what? Her friend leaned closer to their own screen. In your window. She zoomed in, squinting at the 4th floor. And then her stomach dropped. There was someone in her window. Her apartment window. High up on the 4th floor, where her room was, a shape was pressed against the glass. The blurry distortion of Google's automated blurring made the face impossible to see clearly, but there was no mistaking the outline. A head, shoulders, hands braced against the pane as though someone was leaning out, watching. The student's laughter faltered. That's weird. Must have been a glitch. Her friend shook their head. No, that's a person. But that wasn't possible. The Street View capture had been taken months before. She remembered it clearly. Her first semester in the apartment. She lived alone, no visitors. Nobody else had a key. Her skin prickled with goosebumps. She clicked to another angle of the street, rotating the view, hoping the figure would disappear. But every angle showed the same thing, the blurred outline of someone pressed to the glass, staring out from her room. She slammed her laptop shut and tried to laugh it off. Just a trick of the image. A reflection. Something explainable. That night, though, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building seemed louder. The shadows stretched wrong across her walls. And when she finally drifted off, she woke suddenly. Heart hammering. There was movement near the window. Her curtains, usually still, seemed disturbed, shifting slightly as though someone had brushed past them. And silhouetted against the faint glow of the city outside was a shape. Tall. Human. Standing exactly where she had seen it on Google Maps. She froze in bed, every nerve screaming not to look, but she couldn't help it. Slowly, she turned her head toward the window. The silhouette didn't move. Just stood there, head tilted, as though watching her breathe. She squeezed her eyes shut, whispering to herself over and over, "It's not real, it's not real, it's not real." When she finally opened them again, the shape was gone. The curtains hung still. The window was empty. The next morning, she told herself it was exhaustion, a trick of her mind feeding on what she'd seen online. But she didn't feel safe, not anymore. Within a week, she broke her lease and moved out, anything to leave that window behind. Months passed. She tried to bury the memory, telling herself it was all just paranoia, until one night another student, a stranger, posted online. They had just moved into her old building. Same unit, 4th floor. They were showing off their new apartment in a group chat, using Google Maps to give context. And there it was again, the same blurred figure, pressed against the glass, staring out. Even in newer updates, even though the tenant swore no one had been in their apartment at the time. And the worst part, the more people zoomed in, the clearer it seemed to get, as if the blur was peeling back, frame by frame, not hiding the figure anymore, revealing it. Story 3, The Endless Road. It was one of those nights where sleep felt impossible. He sat hunched over his laptop, bathed in the pale glow of the screen, clicking aimlessly through Google Maps like it was a video game. Sometimes he dropped himself into foreign cities, sometimes into quiet suburbs, but this time he let the orange figure fall onto a lonely desert highway. The screen flickered and loaded. A strip of cracked asphalt under a blistering sun, stretching endlessly between dunes of pale sand. No cars, no buildings, just emptiness. He began clicking forward, one frame at a time. The landscape hardly changed. Blue sky, bleached road, endless horizon, the kind of silence you could almost hear through the screen. The further he clicked, the stranger it felt, like walking deeper into a place that wasn't meant to end. And then, after miles of nothing, he saw it. A car. It was rusted, sun-faded, half-buried in dust, parked just off the side of the road. Its paint was peeling, its tires flat, abandoned, probably decades ago. He leaned closer, squinting at the grainy image. Nothing unusual, just another relic of a forgotten stretch of desert. He clicked forward again. Another mile down the road, the car appeared again. Same model, same color, same rust, same position on the shoulder. His brow furrowed. He clicked again, and again. And every time, the car was there. Always the same distance from the road, always the same tilt, like it was following him across the desert. The pit of his stomach tightened. He tried turning the camera in different directions, clicking backward, rotating the view. But no matter how he moved, when the screen shifted forward, the car was waiting. The windows were dark, pitch black. At first, he told himself it was just the resolution, a quirk of how Google stitched the photos together. But then, in one frame, his breath caught. Something had changed. A pale hand was pressed against the inside of the glass. Not a blur, not a trick of the pixels. He could see the outline of fingers, knuckles, pressed so hard against the window that the skin looked stretched and bone-white. His hand slipped on the mouse, but curiosity drove him on. He clicked forward again. This time the car door was open. The hand was gone. The interior was too dark to see into, but his pulse hammered against his ribs. He sat frozen, staring at the screen, every hair on his body prickling, as though something was watching from inside that black space. He should have stopped, should have closed the laptop and walked away. But he didn't. He clicked forward one more time. The screen glitched. For half a second, the desert flickered. Then the image loaded into something else. Not the highway, not the car. His own street, his own house. Except the image was wrong. Street view never looked like this. The capture was at night. The photo was too crisp, too recent. His house stood there, windows dark, the empty road stretching out on either side. His throat tightened. He hadn't searched for his street, hadn't typed his address. But there it was. He dragged the camera around, searching for an explanation. Every angle showed the same street, his street. Silent, waiting. And then, as the camera panned across the windows of his house, he swore he saw something. A shadow, a flicker of movement inside. He yanked his hands back from the keyboard, heart pounding. His laptop fan whirred, the glow of the screen too bright in the dark room. And then, black. The app crashed. The screen went blank. He tried to relaunch it, desperate to prove it was just a glitch. But every time he opened Google Maps, it didn't go to the world map, didn't go to the search bar. It jumped straight back to that same image, his house, at night, frozen in silence. And every time he looked, there was a new detail waiting. The faint outline of something shifting in the upstairs window. The curtains drawn slightly differently than in real life. The impossible sense that whatever had left that car in the desert had found its way home. He doesn't use Google Maps anymore. But sometimes, when he wakes up in the middle of the night, he swears he can hear the faint click of a mouse. Like someone still moving through Street View. Frame by frame, closer, always closer. 3 stories, 3 images, 3 moments that should have been harmless. A quiet road, an apartment window, a lonely highway. Nothing more than frozen snapshots, captured by a passing car with a camera on its roof. But each one slipped. Each one caught something it shouldn't have. A figure standing where no one should have stood. A face staring from a window that should have been empty. A presence waiting on a road that was supposed to be endless. Most people believe Google Maps is always updating. That new photos erase the old, that the world on your screen matches the world outside your window. But sometimes, it doesn't. Sometimes the same shadow shows up year after year, even when the buildings change. Sometimes the same face stares out, blurred but watching, no matter how many times the images refresh. And sometimes late at night, the camera glitches, showing you a place far too close to home. Maybe it's a coding error. Maybe it's the way our brains fill in patterns. Or maybe the truth is simpler and far more terrifying. Maybe Google Maps doesn't just capture places. Maybe it captures what lingers there. So the next time you search your street, when the screen loads, when you start to zoom in, take a breath. Check the frame carefully, because someone might already be waiting. And once you see them, they'll see you too. If you've stayed with me this long, maybe you belong here. The curious ones, the ones who can't look away, even when every part of them is screaming to close the app, to turn off the screen. So subscribe. Join the ones who already know the truth. Your street will never look the same again. Every corner, every window, every shadow is a frame waiting to be clicked. And don't go just yet. The next story is waiting. And trust me, it's already closer than you think. Because these aren't just stories. They're coordinates, markers on a map that never really turns off. You've looked up other people's neighborhoods before, but tonight, it's yours that's glowing on the grid. Zoom in too far, and you might just see me. Or worse, something standing right behind you.